We now know how Russiagate got started, and we know that it was all a lie started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That the Hillary Clinton campaign realized she was in trouble because of her email scandal, which had broken in 2015 in the wake of Benghazi. We found these emails of hers that were weird, and people were like, what server was that on, and so on. And it created a problem for her all the way up to Election Day 2016.
But I could see them and hear them in my ear, and they said, Tulsi Gabbard, you're coming out and criticizing Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy record. Aren't you afraid of what she'll do to you? He asked me this on live television on MSNBC. And you're laughing. I laughed too. I was like, no, I am not afraid of what Hillary Clinton can do to me.
Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard stepping up to roast Hillary Clinton is like unleashing a tag team of sharp tongues and relentless truths on a political heavyweight who thought she'd already seen it all. From campaign blunders to decades of controversies, they leave no stone unturned. Hillary's polished image crumbles under the weight of their pointed critiques, exposing the contradictions, scandals, and missteps that kept her from claiming the throne she desperately sought. This isn't just criticism. It's a full dismantling, served with biting wit and unfiltered fire.
Is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Megyn Kelly's razor-sharp commentary cuts through the veneer of establishment politics, highlighting Hillary's inability to connect with everyday voters despite years in the spotlight. She peels back layers of scripted speeches and rehearsed empathy to reveal a politician more concerned with optics than substance. Megyn Kelly mocks the endless attempts to rebrand herself, turning every campaign slogan into a punchline about missed opportunities and misplaced priorities.
Stole his first term as president. These absolute liars who run around trying to act like they're the protectors of democracy completely ruined it, tried to undermine it at every turn and at the highest levels with lies, with out-and-out lies that were really serious, and changed foreign policy and changed the course of history in this country in Trump's presidency. And there must be accountability. There has to be actual criminal accountability for those who lied. And I can't wait to see this administration.
Tulsi Gabbard brings a unique insider's perspective, dismantling Hillary's foreign policy legacy with surgical precision. From questionable decisions in the Middle East to cozy ties with powerful elites, Tulsi exposes a track record riddled with contradictions and moral compromises. Her critique zeroes in on how Hillary's policies often clash with the ideals she claimed to champion, painting a portrait of a politician more invested in power than progress.
All of these pieces fit quite seamlessly together, creating a very clear timeline that shifted from before the election, the intelligence community almost uniformly saying essentially that Russia is trying to sow discord in the US election, but has no preference for one candidate over another. And then all of a sudden, Trump wins the election, surprising many people, both here and abroad, as we've learned in later documents that we've reviewed, that throughout that campaign, Russia believed that Hillary Clinton would win the election.
Together, Megyn Kelly and Tulsi deliver a devastating takedown that exposes the cracks in Hillary's armor, the scandals, the gaffes, and the persistent failure to inspire genuine trust. Their combined voices unravel the myth of Hillary Clinton, revealing a political career defined less by achievement and more by controversy and mischances. It's a relentless roast that leaves no room for spin or apology, a candid reckoning with a figure who once seemed untouchable, but now stands thoroughly dismantled.
Our audience knows this and you guys, but just for the record, let's play SOT 10.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
We're trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Hillary Clinton's political career has been a spectacle of contradictions, a roller coaster ride filled with high expectations and crushing disappointments. Tulsi Gabbard don't just point to her missteps. They spotlight the disconnect between the carefully crafted public image and the often messy reality behind the scenes. It's the story of a politician who mastered the art of staying in the spotlight, but struggled to win the hearts of the people she claimed to represent.
What's so concerning about what Hillary Clinton is doing here is she is not only calling me a traitor, she is not only trying to smear my character, she's sending a warning out to every veteran, every single American, anyone who stands up against the warmongering foreign policies that really are her legacy, that have been so destructive and costly to my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Kelly's critique zeroes in on Hillary's communication style. Polished but hollow, rehearsed but lacking authenticity. She paints a vivid picture of a politician whose words often felt scripted, as if spoken from a teleprompter designed to charm focus groups rather than inspire genuine connection. Megyn Kelly's sharp observations highlight how Hillary's campaign speeches, filled with lofty promises and grand visions, often rang hollow to voters tired of political doublespeak. This wasn't a leader who energized a movement. It was a politician desperately trying to hold on to relevance in a rapidly changing political landscape. Meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard's insider perspective adds a whole new layer to the takedown. She dissects Hillary's foreign policy record with the precision of a seasoned veteran who knows the stakes involved. Tulsi doesn't shy away from the controversies, from Libya's destabilization to the chaos in Syria, exposing how Hillary's decisions often had devastating consequences far from the campaign trail. Her critique reveals a pattern of interventionist policies that contradicted the very ideals of peace and diplomacy Hillary claimed to uphold. This juggling act, they argue, only deepened the mistrust among voters who saw through the carefully managed facade.
And as she got closer to Election Day, she decided to concoct two lies about Donald Trump to distract from her email scandal. She got the Steele dossier through this Fusion GPS company that her campaign paid, and she got this group CrowdStrike, which was the one responsible for the hack into that. That's the one that said that the Russians hacked the DNC email.
Megyn Kelly doesn't hold back on Hillary's attempts to control the narrative through the media. She shines a light on how the Clinton campaign wielded influence over news coverage and sought to silence dissent, creating an atmosphere where criticism was met with fierce backlash. This wasn't transparent, accountable leadership voters hoped for. It was a tightly managed PR machine designed to protect a fragile image at all costs. Tulsi's critique sharpens further when she addresses Hillary's inability to reckon with the changing political landscape. She points out how Hillary's campaign failed to understand the rising discontent among working-class voters, whose struggles were dismissed or overlooked. Tulsi highlights how this disconnect paved the way for opponents to exploit the gaps in Hillary's platform, turning her own supporters into skeptics. The roast also dives into the infamous email scandal, a defining moment that Kelly and Tulsi both agree was more than just a political hiccup. Tulsi emphasizes the broader implications, suggesting that the scandal was emblematic of a larger pattern of questionable judgment and ethical lapses.
I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, specifically so that I could campaign against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary.
Megyn Kelly points out the glaring contradictions, noting how Hillary's rise was built on breaking glass ceilings, yet her campaign tactics sometimes seem at odds with the solidarity expected of a feminist icon. Tulsi adds to this by reflecting on the missed opportunities to build genuine coalitions, instead opting for political calculations that ultimately alienated potential allies. As the roast progresses, Kelly and Tulsi don't just recount failures, they dismantle the myth of inevitability surrounding Hillary's political career. They challenged the assumption that her victory was a foregone conclusion, showing how her campaign was fraught with strategic errors, overconfidence, and an underestimation of the opposition. This takedown peels back the layers of media hype to reveal a campaign struggling to connect with diverse and skeptical electorate. The rowers also highlight how Hillary's legacy is complicated by the polarized reaction she inspires. Megyn Kelly points out that while Hillary commands loyalty among certain segments, she also symbolizes political frustration and disillusionment for many. Tulsi echoes this, emphasizing that Hillary's career serves as a cautionary tale about the limits of political ambition when it's not matched by genuine responsiveness to public concerns.
The pieces that Glenn and I were getting close to in the discussion was the Hillary piece of this and the evidence, because that is, they do name a couple of names in this appendix on who came up with this scam. And the name that we keep seeing over and over, as one of them at least, was Julianne Smith. Schellenberger writes Julianne. It's Julianne. He writes, the alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor.
The conclusion land hard and undeniable. Kelly and Tulsi's combined critique paints Hillary Clinton not as a victim of circumstance, but as an architect of her own political downfall. They argue that her legacy will be remembered less for her groundbreaking achievements and more for the opportunities she missed, the trust she failed to earn, and the image that crumbled under the weight of scrutiny. This isn't just a roast. It's a reckoning, a call to move beyond the myths and media spin to confront the complex realities of one of America's most scrutinized political figures. Kelly and Tulsi offer a powerful reminder that in politics, as in life, authenticity and accountability matter far more than polished speeches and carefully crafted images. Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard drill down into the heart of what went wrong, not just on campaign trail, but in the very DNA of her political persona. What emerges is a portrait of a woman who wanted to be everything to everyone, and in doing so became nothing to anyone.
So in this latest House report, they talk about how they also in the House, this is the House in 2020, pointing out that the ICA of 2017 ignored evidence that Putin seemed to be protecting Hillary Clinton in a couple of ways. It did not mention, for example, that Putin chose not to leak info he appeared to have on Hillary Clinton's health, including that she suffered from psycho-emotional problems and was on daily tranquilizers. We don't know whether that's true. We know that Putin appeared to have that intel in his pocket and chose not.
Leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people.
Megyn Kelly exposes the calculated nature of Hillary's public image, revealing a politician who meticulously crafted a persona designed to appeal broadly, but ended up resonating with very few. The carefully polished speeches, the rehearsed empathy, the endless attempt to appear relatable, all came across as hollow echoes rather than genuine connections. Kelly critique cuts deep. When authenticity is sacrificed for optics, voters sense it, and that gap is a political killer. Tulsi adds a fierce layer of insider critique. She doesn't just point fingers at the surface. She tears into Hillary's political calculus, especially on foreign policy. The legacy of military interventions, the cozy relationships with powerful global elites, and the decisions that destabilize regions all are scrutinized with sharp precision. Megyn Kelly highlights how Hillary's climb was marked by a willingness to make compromises, often at the expense of core values. Tulsi points to the missed opportunities to stand firm on issues that matter to voters, suggesting that the endless political maneuvering ultimately eroded trust.
So the Russians were able to hack Leonard, and that's where they saw the plan. And we now have in the Durham Annex, like full screen grabs of the Russian memos that the Dutch got their hands on and leaked to us, where the Russians are recounting exactly what they saw Leonard discussing about this Hillary Clinton fan and emissary, Julianne Smith, and how they were going to stop Trump, undermine Trump, but most importantly, distract from Hillary's email scandal.
Hillary's media strategy, pointing out how the campaign's efforts to control the narrative often backfired. Megyn Kelly details how attempts to silence dissent and shape coverage created an atmosphere of defensiveness rather than openness. Tulsi emphasizes that in a world craving transparency, this approach only fueled skepticism and suspicion. A critical point in the roast focuses on Hillary's relationship with the electorate, particularly the working-class voters who felt abandoned. Megyn Kelly discusses how the campaign's messaging often failed to address real economic anxieties, leaving a vacuum that opponents eagerly exploited. Tulsi underscores this disconnect, noting how a failure to engage meaningfully with these communities widened the gap between Hillary and the people she sought to lead. The infamous email scandal is dissected with no mercy. Megyn Kelly mocks the fumbling damage control efforts, turning what should be a moment of accountability into a prolonged spectacle of confusion. Tulsi views the scandal as emblematic of deeper issues, a pattern of poor judgment and ethical lapses that damage Hillary's credibility beyond repair. The roast doesn't shy away from exploring contradictions within Hillary's stance on women's rights.
Woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
Megyn Kelly points out the tension between her feminist rhetoric and the political tactics that sometimes undermine female rivals. Tulsi adds that these contradictions weaken what could have been a unifying message, instead highlighting political pragmatism over solidarity. As the critique builds, Kelly and Tulsi dismantle the myth of inevitability surrounding Hillary's political rise. They argue that her campaign's overconfidence blinded her to real threats and shifting political currents. Megyn Kelly's sharp observations reveal a candidate who underestimated the potency of grassroots movements and the desire for genuine change. Tulsi agrees, noting that this miscalculation was a fatal flaw in an era demanding authenticity over establishment politics. The roast culminates in a powerful assessment of Hillary's legacy. Kelly and Tulsi's critique stands as a reminder that political success isn't just about breaking glass ceilings. It's about building bridges with the people who matter most.